coming today. Busy schedules and whatnot, and we're really excited. We have a good program. It's going to be a quick moving program. We've got 6 panels scheduled for today, and we're going to try and move, like I said, pretty quickly to make sure we get through everything. I want to thank John Affleck from Penn State for providing everything and helping us out here. A lot goes into it, as well you all know. So without wasting any more time, I'm Chris Imperiale. I'm from the Scranton Times Tribune. I'm the regional chair for the Mid-Atlantic. And where is Jim? Jim Reeser is the vice chair. He's from the Citizens Voice in Wilkes-Barre. If you need anything from one of us today, please feel free and reach out. I'll introduce the first panel. We're going to jump right in. Social success is winning strategies to drive your product no matter the size of your newspaper. We have a very good panel we're excited about here today. Mary Nahorniak, USA Today, Deputy Managing Editor of Digital. Got that right. There's Mary. Alex Iniguez from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He is the Associate Sports Editor for Digital. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. Jessica Sprinkle from New York Daily Record. You are in charge of doing a lot of stuff for GameTimePA.com, correct?
It's actually just moved up to sports editor.
There you go. Things are happening already. Sports editor. Congratulations. And this panel will be led by Kirk Chandler from Penn State, your official title, Kirk.
I'm a senior lecturer and specialize in multimedia and entrepreneurial journalism.
Thank you. We'll get started. You guys are ready?
That's what you do, yeah.
Let's do it. All right. Good morning. Hi. Thanks for being here, everyone. This is my super creatively titled presentation. I want to hit the highlights today, so we're not going to do Twitter 101. I know you're all already there. We're going to talk a lot about Snapchat. We're going to talk about live streaming video. Happy to take your questions at the end of this panel after the other panelists speak as well. And feel free to tweet me any questions you have. So the first and most important thing that I want you all to take away today is creating content for social, because that's where it belongs. So it's not about repurposing something you've done for your website. It's not about repurposing something you've done for print and finding a way to make it work on social. We've done that for years. It's okay. I think what's really important is to treat social media like the vertical it really is. It's actually unique in that way, and that it's made up of a bunch of other verticals, right? So social used to mean Twitter. When we talked about social media, that's kind of what we were talking about. Now Facebook is the heavy hitter. You can't talk about social media and not talk about Facebook, and I'll give you some stats to explain that. So I think this is something that we do at USA Today. It's something that's really important. If social media existed just to support other platforms and just to drive traffic, I wouldn't do what I do. I'd probably just go sell Google ads for an agency because it would just be easier that way. But creating content that's meant for social is the way to win there, and that's where people are spending their time, so that's why you want to be there.
All slides and show you.
Oh no. Am I in 16:9? Well, do you want to, well, we can do this. You'll see the,
This is the next page.
you can do this, and I can make it bigger. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good spot. Like that works.
All right, you're gonna see my notes. It's gonna be great.
That's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can see that.
Cool. Okay, just in case I have to sell it, couple of stats. I could give you stats all day. These are some that I think are really compelling right now for us and for the industry. So digital publishers are seeing more traffic from Facebook now than they are from Google. That's as of the middle of last year. And those are publishers who are only digital, like a Vox. So that's not necessarily us. We all have legacy platforms for the most part, but we are on trend to do this probably this year as well. We ran the numbers for USA Today, and the lines are really converging. So this is a major change in the industry. We've talked about and thought about SEO for a really long time. Social is the new search. And of the traffic that we get from social media, 85% of that comes from Facebook. So Twitter is not a traffic driver. You probably know that from looking at your own stats. Facebook is the place to do that. And that's why you've got to have a Facebook strategy. And this is a really important takeaway, I think. Mobile and social are inextricably linked. So we're all on our phones all day. I see lots of phones out. I've got 2 in my bag. We are accessing social platforms on those phones, and we're linking to stories from there. So mobile web is hugely important. Anything that you create for social, anything that you create really, if it doesn't work on mobile, I wouldn't put it out there. So that's where we are at USA Today. If it doesn't work on mobile, we're not using it. We're not promoting it on social, and we're also having a conversation about should we have created that in the first place. And we get more traffic to mobile than desktop from social. Does that make sense? Cool. And the reason that I think all of that is important and why you have to have a strong social media strategy is you've got to be where people are spending their time. So they're spending hours a day on Facebook. We want to be right there with them. We want to be in the news feed. We want to be talking to them in a way that feels organic and natural. And we want to be part of that social experience. So creating content just for social, if it works somewhere else, that's great. We've started doing this, it's been several years now that we've been creating things specifically for social media. And again, that needs to be super visual, it needs to work on mobile. If you can put it on your website too, that's awesome, that's a bonus, but that shouldn't be why you do it. So this is a video that our sports social media editor worked with our graphics team to create. It's a Kobe bobblehead. It won't animate right now, but it's different stats ahead of his last game last week. And this is the kind of thing where we look at who we have and what they can do, and we think about how can we make something really specific for social. So it's easy to understand. You don't have to have audio. That's really important for social video. 70% or more of people are looking at videos without the sound on. I'm one of them, probably 70 or more percent of you are too. So you want to be able to get the information without having to have the sound on. So this just has like a background song. If you're listening, it's not distracting. If you're not, you can still get all the information. And we have some artists who are actually really great caricature artists, so this kind of thing is perfect for us. I think it's also really important to give people something to react to. So emotions drive a lot of activity on social media. So we all see a lot of like feel-good stories, but I think you can also, there are lots of things that people want to react to. They want to react with shock, anger. When something's breaking, they want to share it because they want to say, I know good information to their friends. Happy, sad, you know, things that make good stories, that have always made good stories, it works on social media too. And this is a really basic point, but I think it's important to think about. All of that activity on social media is just driven just like me, just like you. So they're having the same kind of reactions to stories that they always did. They just now have a different place to express it. So this is a also from our graphics team, something that we probably all thought about in graphic season. Something to share, something funny, an easy like on Facebook. So this is not story specific, right? There's actually no story that goes with this. But we do this kind of thing because the more you can drive engagement and drive that fan base, the more of an engaged, large fan base you have when it's time to share something really important, when it's time to share an investigative series, when it's time to say, hey, here's what you really need to know today. You now have people who are right there with you, ready to listen. These are quick upset graphics that were created for the NCAA tournament. They were created just for social by our social media team. Super easy to understand, super simple. That's really key for what you create on social. I would actually argue that the Kobe bobblehead video is a little bit busy. These are the kind of thing that we put out right at the bell. A lot of times we have them pre-created and ready to go. You see the photos are great photo choices, same as traditional good photo choices always have been. They're people, they're emotional, they're the kind of thing that makes it easy to, again, share, like, react to. Oh, I wish this were, I just want to animate this because I want y'all to see these. Let's see. Because they are GIFs. So these were pre-created for the Final Four players, and we knew that we would use one of them on Monday night. It's the kind of thing that I think planning ahead can really serve you well in the long run. This is not the kind of thing that you can create on a tournament game night. It is the kind of thing that you can do the week before and be ready to go with it. And we had this as a video for Facebook, and this is actually a GIF, so we put that on Twitter, we put it on Tumblr. If you think about kind of creating this one piece and then resizing it or remaking it for different platforms, that can really serve you and go a long way. So we talked about mobile a little bit, and I think visual is the other thing. So everybody's attention is really fractured. You really want to catch their eye and get their attention in that newsfeed. This is a photo quote for Instagram. We make a lot of these. We've done a lot of different styles over the years. If you don't have a template for this kind of thing, you absolutely should get your art department to create one and be able to plug things in and go. You simply want to get people's attention. This is a nice shot of Carmelo. It's even better with the quote next to it. And it's a really simple way of conveying this quote and conveying this information and getting people's attention. Oh, this is another GIF. This is just something from last Friday that I liked. Our sports social media editor, Friday Feeling, was trending on Twitter on Friday, as it often does. She just shared this out. Again, it doesn't go with the story. There's nothing else there besides, we're on the social platform with you. We're sharing the kind of images that you want to see. You can actually go into Twitter's GIF library and pick something and share it out really quickly. So you don't have to make it, you don't have to go find it somewhere else on the web. They're all there. You can just do a search. And again, the point of doing this kind of thing is to show that there's somebody behind the account, right? It's a lot easier to interact with a person than it is with a brand. And we're human, we're here to join us. Again, when we have something that we really want you to read and you really want to see, you're right there with us. This, I think, is the other big takeaway for today for me, is making social part of your planning process. So talking about what are we going to do on social from the get-go, when you're talking about new stories, when you're talking about covering games, whatever it is. Creating your social plans from the beginning, not tacking them on at the end. Or worst case, treating social as just the way to get all of that information out the door once it's been created. That's what we did in the early days of Twitter. It's not where we are now. And I think the important thing is seeing it all the way through. So a couple of examples. These, I think, are just good questions to ask. I would say you're getting there at USA Today overall doing this kind of social planning. Some teams are there faster than others. Our sports department is awesome at this. We have a lot of really strong reporters who want to do interesting, cool things on social media. So questions to ask: who's going? What can they do? What do we want them to do? Is there something new that we're trying to push? Is it Snapchat? Is it live video? Do they have the skills to do that, or do I need to get them to sit down with somebody beforehand? Do you need a second person? Sometimes you do. When something's big enough, if you've got somebody who says, I just can't do it all as much as I want to, send in somebody for social to do a couple of specific things, and then send them back to do whatever it is that you need. I know that isn't always a possibility, but it's something to think about. Something that I think does really well is behind the scenes stuff. We have a lot of that on our sports social accounts, particularly on our Snapchat. Is there an opportunity in this coverage to do that? Are there any credentialing restrictions? This is a reality of life. So you may not be able to do live streaming video from inside. Can you do it from outside? Can you say, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm here, this is what's happening. When the game's over, can they go back outside and say, here's what happened. Hey fans, what did you think? It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be on that platform that you think is the one that's really important for you. And then this is a kind of a basic question, but it's an important one to talk through. What accounts should they be using? Do you want them to use a personal account? Do you want them to use a brand account? Do you want them to do some combination of the two? Do they have the skills to do that? So this is where I think you want to think about the ecosystem of your social accounts. So for us at USA Today, our main blue USA Today logo would be at the center. Around that, we've got sports, life, money, all of our sections, some of our blogs, that kind of thing. And then around that, we have all of the people that do that work, right? We have reporters, we have editors, we have photographers, all affiliated with our brand, all part of our big ecosystem. So how can you take a piece of that and make sure that it's getting the volume it deserves? So if you say, hey, college basketball reporter, I want you to live tweet this game, then you want to make sure you're retweeting them from those brand accounts. You want to make sure you have tweets that say, follow so-and-so from the game tonight for live updates, making sure that you're cross-promoting and that you're making that ecosystem work for you. It also means that you don't have to have everything represented everywhere. If somebody in that world can take care of it for you and you can drive attention to them, then that's a win. So Snapchat I mentioned earlier, it's a really big deal for us right now. I hope it's something that you're thinking about. I hope it's something that you're doing. If not, it's time to start thinking about it. There are more videos watched on Snapchat every day than there are on Facebook. That is an enormous statistic. It's something like 8 billion views a day. So last week we had Kobe's last game and we had the Warriors win streak. We decided to do 2 Snapchat stories from 2 different accounts. You may not have to. It may not even be a good thing that we have 2, but we do. So our For the Win reporter went to the Kobe game, our USA Today Sports reporter went to the Warriors game. They couldn't have done one Snapchat story, it's not technically possible. It is possible, but it would have been complicated to log in and out and to have, you know, a photo from one thing and then a photo from the next. It just wouldn't have made a good story. So we decided to do two, and this is in addition to their regular reporting responsibilities. Both really good, long Snapchat stories with a beginning and middle and an end. And then you want to cross-promote, right? So if there's a snap in a forest and no one's around to hear it, did anybody watch your story? Cross-promote, right? Snapchat can feel like a black box. It exists only in that platform. Again, it's only mobile. They don't have a website. That's on purpose. As a user, I actually think that's really cool and I admire it. It would make life a little easier as a journalist if they did, but they don't. So you can actually link to your Snapchat account and it will create this promo. So for those of you that use it, if you don't know, you can open up your Snapchat, open up the video, take a photo of any of these little ghosts that you see out in the world, and it will let you try to add that account as a friend. It's a super simple way of going in there and adding it. So if you've probably seen Twitter handles, people are changing their avatars to this. We're doing it when we have stories we want to promote. Make sure that you're letting people know you can follow us here, here, and here, and this is what you're going to get. You can do the same thing too, for example, if you've got great Instagram photos, taking those, creating tweets with them, saying follow us on Instagram for updates from X, Y, and Z. For the Win actually took this a step further. They created a story page, 5 greatest moments from Kobe's final game, and they used screenshots from their Snapchat story. They actually took some of the Snapchat video, put it on Vine, and embedded those Vines, which sounds kind of crazy, but I actually think it's really a creative solution to getting that video onto the story page. So making sure that people know what you're doing, and again, you can repurpose it. If it works somewhere else, great. So that social media work did end up feeding the story page, and it turned into a really nice list. Encouraging experimentation, so that's what a lot of that is. I think if we all had waited to join Twitter until we knew what it was going to become, we'd be dead in the water. So you've got to play on these platforms early. If it makes sense to start using them as a user first before you want to get your brand in there, I think that's fine. That's what it took for us on Snapchat. My whole team, we all just started snapping each other after we saw a really great presentation at ONA 2 ONAs ago in the fall. And after that, it was like, this is an amazing platform, and we can actually tell some really cool stories here. And it's where people are, so we want to be there. I think it's about building that audience, and it's about getting them engaged so that they're there, again, when you have something that you want to share with them. Facebook Live video is another really big deal right now. A couple of weeks ago, Facebook said, we are going to prioritize these videos in the newsfeed algorithm. And they can do that, it's their platform, it's their algorithm. So Periscope had kind of been the live streaming platform of choice. Facebook Live video is now where we're turning our attention to. I think it ultimately will work itself out and probably in favor of Facebook. Again, it is a heavy hitter. These are 2 Facebook Live videos from the last couple of weeks. On the left is Tom Pelissero, our NFL reporter, talking about the schedule after it was released. He had 200 or so comments that he actually addressed in that live chat. And then on the right, we had For the Win reporter Ted Berg giving a tour of the food at Mets Field this year. It's like a 30-minute live Facebook video of here are all the things that they'll be selling. So they're trying new things, right? These are different ways of interacting with an audience and telling stories. I think it's also really important to think about, I've got something good, what can I do with it? This is an amazing shot that our photographer Bob Deutsch took. Lots of people in our building recognize this is amazing. So Taylor Macon, she actually works for our college team, not sports college, USA Today College. And she spotted it and she tweeted it and she just said this photo is unreal. And it went viral. So you can see she's got 1,100 retweets, 1,500 likes. Those are crazy stats. It's something, it's arresting, right? And it makes you feel something. It makes you remember that game if you're watching it. And so as we recognize the value of that photo, we thought about what else can we do with this? So of course we're going to put it on Instagram. Our sports social media editor built the end of the NCAA championship in 6 photos Tumblr post. This is photo number 1. and I believe it also became a Facebook post. So I've got something good, what can I do with it? And does it need to be customized for those platforms? One size doesn't always fit all, but sometimes it can. We're also playing with Twitter photo galleries. That's just a tweet with multiple images added to it. This is a gallery that we had of cute kid photos from the Masters. We do this every year. We did the same thing with the end of the NCAA game in 4 photos, I believe, since that's where you max out on Twitter. So this is just something that the sports social media editor said, hey, I've been trying this. I'm like, that's great. And it makes for an excellent tweet. I also think a little emoji can go a long way. Polls. This is something that's been on Twitter for probably 6 to 8 months. It's something that I think we've been thinking of as journalists in social media for a long time. How can we ask people this question in an effective way? This was, what game are you watching? What are you watching tonight? Are you watching playoffs? Are you watching baseball? Are you watching Kobe? Are you watching the Warriors? The winner was Kobe, but not by much. This is just great information to have. And it's another way for people to interact with you. I never talk about social media without talking about engagement, so I think that's the fun part. Again, since we don't just use social as a distribution platform for things that we've created for other places, we also don't just put something out on social and leave it there and not come back to it. So once you've created all this great stuff for social, what happens to it? What's its life cycle, and can you be part of that? So this is a great little story so the coach of the Washington women's basketball team tweeted us when they moved from unranked into the top 10, and they didn't show up as one of the biggest movers, even though they were the biggest mover that week in our coaches poll. And he said, how are we not the biggest riser? And there's actually 2 tweets, you can't see them both here, that we responded. And we essentially said, you broke the software. There's no way for us to say you went from not being on this list at all to being 7 or 8. And he tweeted us back and said, thanks for checking on us. Nice interaction to have, good to be part of that. If you can answer a question, I think that goes a really, really long way. This is a kind of a bigger example with an NCAA coach, but people in your community love it when you can do this kind of thing. It takes a couple of seconds to respond, or even just to click the heart or click the like, and I think it really makes a difference. Back to the first thing, so creating for social like you would any other platform, for what its unique pros and cons are, for what each platform can do for you. I think that's the biggest takeaway. And you really want to maximize those visuals. That's another GIF. So my co-panelists will talk, and then we'll take your questions. And if you have something you don't want to ask in this room, feel free to tweet it at me. Thank you.
Let's go next. Alex?
I guess I'll just introduce myself really quickly. I've been at the Post-Gazette in Pittsburgh for almost 5 years now. The first 4 of that was designing and copying for the actual print sports section. Since November, I've been doing this digital sports editor job. And my biggest goal when I took over is just get everybody on the same page, work on our branding consistency, make sure people need to know how to do this stuff, know how to do it. And then once I got that in order, now I'm starting to experiment on new different things, Facebook Live video being one of them, Snapchat being another. And right now I'm in the testing phase and kind of just poking around, and I plan on broadening that out to more reporters soon.
If I can just ask one question, do you have social media people working next to your reporters, or are those in different places?
We have a couple of company-wide or newsroom-wide social media staffers, but as far as sports goes, I'm pretty much it. Luckily, a couple of my coworkers, Michael, they're familiar with it too, so I'm not in it alone, but it is my main priority. It's pretty much me.
So, but are you in the sports section of the newsroom?
Yes.
And you've connected everybody?
Yes, yeah, I am the sports social media liaison, if you will.
Okay, so how does all this translate down to a paper the size of the York Daily Record?
It's interesting. We're in the middle of kind of reorganizing our newsroom. We're doing some of the Gannett ideas with Newsroom of the Future. So we have a breaking news and social desk that's literally in the middle of the newsroom. It's our heart and soul, and everybody kind of is close enough to be in communication with those folks about things. Sports is always unique in that it takes a certain, it's not that that you have to be a sports person to be able to do sports social media, but some people are a little bit less comfortable with it. So we do a little bit more hands-on in my department in sports than we do than some of the more hard news, crime-y kind of stuff that goes on. For us, it's really about paying attention to, it's about knowing our audience and trying to reach them at the right moments when they are looking for us. So for example, we had a really cool video that we published where we were doing some slow-mo video with a pitcher. He was showing us how to hold the ball, to throw a curveball or knuckleball or whatever the case may be. And then the catcher was wearing a GoPro camera. So we had it edited, and it was a really cool looking video. And when it was all said and done, it was around 5 or 5:30 in the afternoon. Probably not when we would have hoped it would have been done, but that was when it was done. And my reporter, who had done the videography and editing himself for it, he said, "I'm not going to tweet this right now. It's done. I want to put it out there, but I can't tweet it right now." I'm like, "Brandon, why can't you put it out there right now?" He says, "Every single person I want to watch this video is at baseball practice right now. They're in the middle of playing a baseball game." So we waited, and we put it out on the brand at that point because there were still, there's fans and parents and things that would be able to watch it then. But he waited himself until he knew when his audience was going to be ready for it. So that's kind of a hands-on lesson that we try to keep in mind as much as we can.
So how do you equip people to do social media, both, are you issuing people smartphones, and then how are you training them? We just sort of go right down the road.
Yeah, I think everything has to start with the phone at this point. If you need to scale it up for desktop or anything, you can do that, but start with the phone. You identify at first the easiest people to teach this stuff to, and then you kind of dig in and slowly chip away at people who are harder to teach it to. But yeah, I think you have to start with what are they capable of, what are they willing to do, and make sure you definitely start with the phone.
So does the PG issue phones to reporters, or?
Yeah.
Okay. In New York?
We do as well. We just had our visual editor went through about an hour of training with all of our staff. She set up a schedule and went through and made sure that everybody knew how to shoot just basic video with their iPhones, and then use programs like iMovie to put together some really nicely edited video that some of my reporters are doing stuff. I'm like, "Did you really do that with your phone?" And they're like, "Yeah, actually, we did." So kind of finding, it's hard, everybody's busy, but if you force an hour onto someone and say, "You have to learn how to do this," you're going to get some great responses out of it.
Mary?
I think to kind of jump off what Alex said, if you think about like the bell curve of where people are skill-wise, you've got some people on one end who are, who know what they're doing, who are willing to take on new things. Most people are in the middle, you're 70, 80%. And then you have a few people at the end who maybe aren't ready or don't want to. We actually don't have that problem as much anymore at USA Today, which I'm really grateful for. But I think what your goal is to move the whole bell curve over, right? You want the people who are great to be even better. You want all the people in the middle who are willing but maybe need a little more training to get them to where those other people were. And then you want to bring everybody along with them. So that's what we have been trying to do, is kind of shift this over. And I think you're right, Alex, that you do start with the people who are great at it and hold up their work as examples and say, they're able to make this work. Hey, so-and-so, please tell us how you did this. How were you able to live tweet that press conference and write the story right afterward? Oh, well, I used my tweets as notes. And everybody goes, wow. So you take them and you let them explain, I do what you do, here's how I made it work for me. We do give phones to people, we do lots of trainings, and we do a lot of one-on-one, which takes up the most amount of time, but it's the most effective, is sitting down with somebody at their desk or going out with them in the field and saying, here's how I would do this, here's the phone, log in and give it a try. And not being afraid when that maybe doesn't turn out as great as you wanted, they now have the tool in their toolkit and they can keep building on that.
So the big game changer last week was Facebook announced that they're going to allow people to create branded content and use that in their Facebook feed. So after years of telling people you can't directly monetize social media, apparently that's gonna be different.
Yeah.
How's that gonna impact what you do, enough to sort of go back down the road?
I think it's really gratifying to be able to point to that and go, we've been building this strong audience, now we can monetize it. And I talked about it being a vertical, which is a little bit of a jargony term, but now we can monetize that vertical where it exists, instead of just using it to drive traffic to our site and to our mobile site, which we do know how to monetize. And instant articles is another example. So those are open to everybody now. If you're not having that conversation in your newsrooms, you should be. Do you want to be part of that? What does it mean for you? We've been part of it since last fall, and we're actually seeing almost equal amounts of dollars and cents for a view of an instant article as for a view of our mobile web page. So it's thinking about this exists where my audience is, this exists where my revenue can also be. So I think it's great to have those new guidelines out. And we're also able to monetize videos on Facebook as part of a beta. We're able to monetize videos on Twitter as part of a beta. So those will likely be coming your way soon too. There is a hand in the back.
Sorry, question. What kind of success are you guys having with your apps?
Apps are a really big deal for us at USA Today. So I heard somebody explain it early on as like, you know, USA Today was a newspaper you got when you traveled, you got it in the airport, you got it at your hotel doorstep. We're all familiar with that model. For us, the apps are the new version of that, taking it with you wherever you go. We get 66% of all of our traffic from mobile, and the large majority of that is from our apps. So it's creating content specifically for that audience. We program and churn very, very heavily in terms of what goes on our apps. We're always looking at headlines, we're always looking at images and making sure they're the best that they can be.
To follow up on that, app users, do you find them to be, or do you identify them as sort of super engaged people, just by the very fact that they downloaded the app? And do you essentially program the site differently because of that?
The site or the app?
The app, I'm sorry.
I think it depends. I'd say the short answer is yes, but they have different habits, right? A tablet user is really different from a phone user, and we can look at our tablet traffic, for example, and it spikes at times that I think will make sense to us. It spikes in the morning when people wake up. It pretty much quiets down during work, maybe a little bump around lunch if people are going out to lunch and reading some articles. Bigger bump as they get home in the evening, and then the biggest bump at night before they go to bed and they're actually trying to read things, you know, like a magazine. So we see a lot of longer form stuff do really well there. So I think that audience is really engaged at those specific times. Our phone audience is super flat, but it's at a really high level. They are using their phones all the time, all day long. And sometimes it's just 2 minutes in between meetings. They want to read a quick story or just look for something new. So we are trying to give them something new to see every time they get there. And what we actually do is we program, you meant apps, but I want to answer the question for the site. So we program our homepage with mobile in mind, because the way that we lay out stories there, they actually flow down to mobile in the same order. So we're programming the homepage as if it were for our mobile audience, which I think is not wrong. It's more engaging stuff, it's a quicker churn, and I think that's a good thing.
So if somebody clicks on a link in social media or it goes to your mobile responsive website, does that then also promo them to the app, or how do you link all that together?
Yep, you'll get an app promo at the top of that page. You can dismiss it or you can download it. You download it. And we also have the app linked up on our Twitter page and on our Facebook page. And Facebook has like a call to action button now at the top of pages where you can say, give people that same kind of ad. You're on our Facebook page, hey, do you want to download the app? So yeah, we're trying to drive that heavily. But that doesn't mean that's the only place we want people, because to Kurt's point, mobile web is where they're coming from social. We can't deep link into the app. So we want that to be a really good experience as well.
You have a question over here?
This is for Mary in the second part. You keep saying you're monetizing it.
Yep.
I'm just curious how are you monetizing it? Are you seeing a return that is equivalent or more so than the manpower that it's taking to do a Kobe bobblehead graphic? Are you getting enough money just to pay that guy's salary to do that?
You know, I haven't crunched the numbers in that specific way, but I also would hesitate to do so because you wouldn't want to run that argument for, let's say, an investigative series. You know, how much time did it take to do 6 to 8 months for 3 people? is that ever gonna make the amount of money that you spend on their salaries and on the FOIA requests? No, but that isn't why we do it. So I think you have to look at it as an aggregate. As far as how we're monetizing those 2 video programs that I mentioned that are part of Facebook and Twitter, it's a rev share for ads that they run as pre-roll, and if we actually run our own ads, we get 100% of the revenue. If we do a rev share, there's some split, and it depends on the platform. So I think the important thing is that we are now able to make money there, and that's only gonna continue to grow.
And the follow-up for Jess is
Yeah.
that video sounds awesome about the pictures going. So are you able to work with your advertisers about how you can turn that into any kind of money at all?
That's a good question. We have gone through some reorganization among our ad sales folks. So we just got somebody who's working on, she does so much work with Facebook that I think that is going to be, especially with the new opportunities there, I think that's going to be a way that happens. And we haven't quite gotten there yet.
Let me add actually one more thing too. So as you build those bigger audiences and you grow them on Facebook and on Twitter and that kind of thing, we have clients that come to our advertising department and say, we want to advertise on your social media as well. So that's an additional source of revenue it's not a rev share, it's not an agreement with Facebook. There's now guidelines for doing so, as Kurt mentioned. So, I'd say a couple of times a month, we have our social marketing person works with me and works with the sales side and kind of runs in between the two to say, okay, we'll promote this sponsored content X times on these platforms in these ways, with this kind of art and that sort of thing. So it ends up being a value add for packages that we do give to advertising clients who are coming to us and saying, we want to reach that audience that you've built, not necessarily the audience that we've built.
Question for the field. I don't know if any of you have a paywall, but what recommendations would you have for people whose website at least is behind a paywall, just kind of doesn't exist and create social for social's sake, or is there something else to consider?
Do you have the foul ball rule where you can come in through social, you get free?
Not necessarily, but we have like reporters' blogs where we will post things that would go on the website under blogs. It's kind of a cherry picking thing, like a lot of our minor league baseball coverage. Nobody's going to buy the whole paywall paper just for that. But if you just want to read our minor league baseball coverage, you can go in there and get it that way. High schools tend to be mostly behind the paywall. There's some cherry picking, but that's something where we think our audience is more likely to maybe buy the whole bundle.
There's an interesting experiment happening in Pittsburgh right now. Dejan Kovakovic used to work at the Post-Gazette as a hockey writer and then at the Tribune Review as a sports columnist, and also I believe had a talk radio show on ESPN. Started his own website. It's been subscription only from the beginning, and he also does display advertising, and he also does events. He now has a staff of 8 people, and he's covering the colleges more deeply than the 2 newspapers are combined. So there's clearly a space for that in some markets, although Pittsburgh's such a weird market. I know when I was at the Post-Gazette, we did a pay site for Steelers, because nobody's more rabid than Steelers fans. At that point, more than 50% of our website traffic was just Steelers. And people paid $15 or $20 a year. That was enough for us to hire an additional reporter, basically, to provide that coverage. Everybody thought it was genius. Then we took the paywall off and just ran that on the main site and tripled our revenue because of the views and against advertising. So it's a tricky question. I think that for Dejan, that worked out because he had no other way to support the site when he started, and he was able to pull it off. But I'm not. Can you talk a little bit about how he's affecting you and how you're dealing with that both with social media and strategically?
Yeah, he has a lot of subscriptions at the beginning. It's still new, so it's yet to be known how that'll work out long term. But you're right, it's wildly popular. People like him because he's the voice of fans. So it's a little bit different of an angle. We have a leaky paywall. I think 10 reviews before you have to sign up. And that seems to work pretty well. Keep growing that. Are you asking?
How do you compete with that, both in social media, and then is that changing how you're thinking about paywalls?
No, I'm pretty anti-paywall. I think you should be getting your content out there as much as you can. Excuse me, as much as you can.
And part of that is social media, because you think you can drive traffic towards it?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I think it's also about building the brand, right?
Yeah.
It's like, connect with us on these social platforms and you'll see that we can bring you this stuff and maybe you'll become a subscriber as well. So getting them there through the tools that they're already using for free, I think would be a way to do that. I would also probably experiment with getting as much out there on social as you could, rather than thinking it, again, as like a promo to subscribe, but more so like, we've got this video on our site, we're also gonna put it on Facebook. Or, you know, maybe even like a Facebook note, they just redid how those actually look, they look really cool now. Putting a story out there on Facebook in full, you know, to trying things like that, I think, along the way, to attract people and to deliver them something in the moment, versus we can't do much because they can't read stories. If there are a lot of other ways, I think, to engage them that could pay off.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job by putting some of that stuff around the paywall. I think you need to keep building readership, even though there's a barrier there.
If I could add one thing to that discussion, maybe from a contrarian view, Ben and I work for the same company or the same chain. And we'll do some of that with our Penn State coverage or our tuna curve coverage, but we can't do it for like a day or two. We can't put our information on a blog for free, fresh. I don't know, Ben, if you have that same issue. So I just want to throw out a different component here of disagreeing with the fellow from the folks that, why are we giving everything away for free? We've done this for 20 years and it's led to mass destruction. I don't know that anything could have prevented that in our industry. But our company, the nutting chain, doesn't give anything away for free. Their purpose is to not give it away for free, to slow down the subscription reduction that we've all witnessed. So I'm just curious, just to get your panel.
In our market, at least, there's another paper who's giving us
Right,
away.
but that's not the case in most markets in the country.
Right. Even still, I would say that there's value in building up your readership. I think you'd see your readership go way up without a paywall.
But can you make money?
Yeah, I mean, every click you make money on.
And you're gonna plateau those subscribers at some point if you haven't already. You're only gonna ever be able to make so much from them. So I think the bigger play is, I wouldn't think of it as giving it away for free. I think it's about putting it where people can find it and monetizing it well there. And that's really been the problem, is how do we monetize that? And I think we're starting to solve some of those problems now with tools like instant articles and things like that. So a lot of it I would put right back on the sales team. And do they understand social? Do they understand mobile? Do they know what these audiences want and need? Are clients coming to them and asking for things that they can't give them or they don't understand? That's where I think we have to make up that gap. You've had your hand up.
Yeah, we got a question.
I guess I was thinking about your standalone content, the Kobe graphic, and different artists that you guys have that can create things like that. But I was wondering, from a more localized perspective, is there any ad interest in that from local advertisers because they want to be a part of the conversation as well? Obviously, and those are images that kind of tend to go viral more than a typical news story would.
We haven't had that necessarily. It's harder with the hyper-local stuff that we're doing that, for the high school stuff specifically, it's harder to do that.
We have yet to do that as well, but that's certainly on my list of things to investigate.
Would you think there would be local
It's tough to
advertising
say.
interest?
It's tough to say. I mean, our main paper Facebook account has close to 100,000 fans on it. I could easily see us dropping in sponsored content into that at some point.
Are you guys having conversations with your advertising and marketing departments about how to do all this stuff and what they want to do?
Not as much as we should be.
Yeah.
I have that social marketing person, so I'm lucky to have somebody who understands what I do and who understands what they do. And there have been a few gaps as that person has left for a new job and hired somebody new, and I've had to do it, and I would say it's difficult. And there are times where you go, like, they'll say they want to throw X amount of money at us if we can give them these number of social posts. And I'm like, please don't tell me the number. Like, that's not the conversation that I want to have. It's more about, does this make sense for who we are editorially? And that's where we make the distinction and draw the line. But the conversation definitely is happening. I'm trying to think of a Gannett case study from the field where an advertiser has said, we want to do this kind of thing. I know we have some, and probably that social marketing person that I work with knows them. But I think it is happening. Even if it's not bubbling down to your level, they're saying we want to reach people in an effective way, and you know how to do that, so let's work together.
I mean, one of the obvious changes with social media and the switch to mobile has just been the demand of your audience that your user experience be at least acceptable. So, that's why, you see ad blockers, they're telling you that we don't want giant ads covering everything. We don't want ads inline in stories because it's really disrupting the story, which is one of the reasons people are sort of flowing towards branded content. How do you think you're going to be able to deal with that? And what's the strategy there?
Dealing with ad blockers and such?
Well, just trying to find, just trying to find a way to monetize that with your audience. I mean, what's the conversations you want to have with your advertising people about what works and what doesn't work?
That's a good question. I think you guys kind of have an open dialogue with them and say, here's what we are offering, how can you help us monetize that? And as long as we're, and then every once in a while giving them ideas of how we think that they could monetize what we're doing, kind of going back and forth with them as opposed to just saying, go sell this ad. And it has to be more of a conversation.
Are you having conversations with them about what the user experience is?
Sure, yeah, we're taking a look at our website and how it looks on mobile and trying to fix that a little bit, make it a little bit better.
I think we're having the same kind of conversation that we're having about editorial content. So for a piece of branded content, this advertiser, I think we had it might have been the Mayo Clinic a few years ago, so they wrote an article, a sponsored branded article, which says sponsored at the top. And then they actually created images for social media that we would put out on Twitter driving to that article. So kind of a best practice for us in the newsroom. How can we take a piece of this and use it on social in a really organic, native way? They did the same thing, and those images actually did really well, and they were sharing the statistics from their article. They had sponsored on them, but really it just felt like good content, and I think that kind of thing is how you win there.
But you also.
We have time for one last question because it is 10:05, so.
Right.
John, a question, a different topic. I'm wondering what suggestions you have for reporters about how to use Facebook professional pages? And is it a much different experience than Twitter? I tweet a lot, I've got a Facebook professional page, put stories on there, respond to comments. It seems like it's kind of hard building up sometimes with the followers compared to what Twitter is like.
Yeah, this comes up all the time. It's a great question. So my advice typically for most reporters is to use the public settings of your personal Facebook page. So it's not creating a separate page, the so-and-so journalist page. It's your personal profile shared publicly, where you're likely to spend much more time interacting with people because that's you and that's your personal life. You can draw a wall between these pictures of my kid are personal, this story that I wrote is something that I share publicly, and you can choose at every post level whether you want it to be a friend's post or a public post. And you can acquire followers for that. I think it's a lot easier to get followers on a personal profile than it is to build up a page from scratch. You also wind up having to manage this page, so you have these two split things that you're doing in Facebook that can be really complicated. While you get all these extra tools and analytics and the ability to schedule posts and all kinds of great things that come with Facebook pages, I think it can be overwhelming and a little bit of overkill for your average reporter. So that's my best advice, is to do the personal profile publicly.
Is it the same thing, sorry, like Twitter? I mean, could you be putting stuff on Facebook 5 to 10 times a day, just comments, that
Sure.
type of stuff? That doesn't annoy people? That are okay with it?
I wouldn't link your tweets to Facebook, and I think you
Yeah.
probably end up doing a little bit less there. You want it to have more bang for your buck, essentially, but sure, we have our tech team, the guy that, he's the tech editor, he'll just post, I'm working on a story about this. Or does anybody know anybody who would comment about this topic? The other day, he actually shared his lead of his print story for the next day on Facebook. So, I think you can do that. I would caution, do it a little bit less than you would on Twitter, but absolutely the same kind of thing.
The one thing, I think you can still share, if you have your personal page, your branded account can still share your posts, I believe. So that's a good way to get yourself out there if it's your own, if you have a journalist page or if it's your personal account, just to get people, get your readers to drive traffic there, just kind of get a little bump from your branded page.
This conversation could clearly go on for an hour or more. I want to thank our speakers very much. It's been terrific.